I thought learning how to date a boy would be the hardest part. I was wrong. The hardest part was figuring out how to make our families understand that Lucas and I weren't confused, or joking, or ruining some perfect childhood friendship. We were in love. And somehow that was exactly what scared everyone. Before my dad decided to nail my bedroom window shut, my biggest problem was standing in front of the prize counter at Starland Arcade, holding Lucas's hand and realizing neither of us had any idea what we were doing. So, I stood in front of the prize counter at Starland Arcade, staring at a wall of stuffed animals like they contained answers from the universe. Do we hold hands first, or is that like a second date thing? Lucas looked at me over the rim of his soda. His blonde hair was a mess from the claw machine fan blowing directly into his face for 10 minutes. Martin. What? Being gay doesn't come with a boyfriend manual. I blinked. That seems like poor community planning. His mouth twitched. I'll file a complaint. The stupid thing was we had held hands before. Across windows, on rooftops, in the dark when everything felt too big to say out loud. But this was different. This was Saturday afternoon under neon lights, surrounded by middle schoolers screaming over air hockey and a birthday party of 7-year-olds wearing paper crowns. This was public. This was date. This was Lucas standing close enough that his sleeve brushed mine, and my brain acting like we were doing something illegal in front of a security camera. I glanced down at his hand. Lucas noticed immediately, because Lucas noticed everything. He lifted his eyebrows. Are you planning to stare at it until it gets lonely? I'm evaluating logistics. Of my hand. It's a complicated hand. He held it out, palm up like a dare. My heart did something humiliating. I took it. For 3 seconds, we both stood there like idiots. Then Lucas squeezed my fingers once, and somehow that made it worse. Not bad worse. Just real worse. The kind of real that made my ribs feel too small. A kid ran past us yelling, "Mom, I want a frog." Lucas leaned closer. We're being out-romanced by a plastic frog. I laughed so hard I almost dropped his hand. After that, it got easier. Not easy. Easier. We played skee-ball and Lucas cheated by being naturally good at everything involving hand-eye coordination. I accused him of hustling me. He won me a tiny blue dinosaur from the claw machine and presented it with the seriousness of a knight offering his sword. For you. I took it, trying not to smile too hard. Is this what boyfriends do? Lucas looked at the dinosaur, then at me. I have no idea. Great. But I think we're doing okay. That shut me up. On the walk home, the sun had started to drop behind the houses, turning the sidewalks gold. Our hands found each other again without the whole congressional hearing this time. Lucas's thumb brushed mine. I let it. Then I leaned a little closer, close enough that his shoulder bumped mine. He looked over, softer now. You're getting brave. I tried to sound normal. Don't make it weird. His smile went crooked. Too late. I was still smiling when we turned onto my street. I was still holding his hand. And then my mother stopped at the end of our driveway with a grocery bag in one arm, staring at our fingers like they were a sentence she had just learned how to read. Lucas went still beside me. My hand loosened by instinct. His did not. That was the part that made my chest hurt. Lucas didn't grab me tighter. He didn't make a scene. He just stayed there, fingers still warm around mine, giving me exactly 1 second to decide what kind of person I was going to be. My mother stood at the end of the driveway with a grocery bag pressed against her hip. A carton of eggs peeked out of the top. For some reason, that made the whole thing worse. Like my life had not exploded in a dramatic courtroom or during a thunderstorm. It had exploded beside a minivan, between a gallon of milk and 12 cage-free eggs. Martin. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Lucas's thumb shifted once against mine. Not a squeeze. Not pressure. Just there. I looked at our hands. Then at him. His face was carefully blank, which meant he was hurt. Lucas only got that still when something had landed exactly where it could bruise. I hated myself for letting go even halfway. So I fixed it. I slid my fingers back between his and held on properly. My mother's eyes moved from our hands to my face. I swallowed. My throat felt full of glass. Mom, I love Lucas. Lucas went completely still beside me. Not scared still. Shocked still. Like I had just stepped off a ledge and he had not expected me to do it with both feet. My mother blinked once. The grocery bag crinkled under her grip. For a second, nobody moved. Car passed behind us. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked like the universe had decided we needed background noise. Then my mom looked at Lucas. Not cruelly. That almost made it harder. She looked at him like she was trying to rearrange 17 years of memories in her head. Lucas at our kitchen table. Lucas stealing fries from my plate. Lucas climbing through my window in daylight with his sneakers on because my parents had made that rule when we were 12. Lucas, who had always been safe because everyone thought they knew what he was to me. My mom's mouth parted, then closed again. Lucas finally found his voice. His shoulders were straight, but his eyes were soft. Mrs. Carter, I'm not trying to disrespect your family. I almost laughed because of course Lucas would sound like he was defending a parking ticket at City Hall while my entire nervous system was on fire. My mom took a slow breath. Lucas, I think you should go home. His fingers tightened for half a second, then loosened. I hated that too. Mom! Her eyes came back to me. Not angry. Not yet. We'll talk at home. That sentence had weight. The kind adults used when they wanted to save the yelling for private walls. Lucas looked at me. I looked back. There were about 1,000 things I wanted to say. Don't go. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to let go. I meant it. I love you. I love you. I love you. What came out was smaller. I'll text you. His smile barely made it to his face. Okay. My mom turned toward the house. I followed. After 3 steps, I looked back. Lucas was still on the sidewalk, hands in the pockets of his hoodie now, blonde hair catching the last thin light of the afternoon. He looked smaller from a distance, which was impossible because Lucas never looked small. But right then, he did. Like he had just realized this wasn't only about us anymore. And so had I. Dinner had never sounded so loud. Forks against plates. Ice shifting in glasses. My dad cutting chicken like it had personally offended him. My mom sat across from me with her napkin folded too neatly beside her plate. She kept looking at me, then looking away, like she was afraid her face would say something before she was ready. Dad lasted 6 minutes. Honestly, longer than expected. He set his fork down. So how long has this been going on? My stomach tightened. Not long. His jaw flexed. That isn't an answer. It's the only one I have. Mom touched the edge of her glass. Martin, we're not trying to attack you. Dad let out a humorless laugh. I'm trying to understand why my son was holding hands with the boy who's been climbing through his window for years. There it was. Lucas turned from person into evidence. I pushed my plate away. Don't say it like that. Dad's eyes sharpened. Like what? Like he did something wrong. Dad leaned back, arms crossing. I let him climb through your window because I trusted both of you. The sentence hit harder than I wanted it to. Because once, that trust had felt like proof that Lucas belonged in my life. Now my dad was using it like proof that we had tricked him. I looked down at the table, at the scratch near my thumb from when I was 12 and tried to carve my initials with a butter knife. Lucas had been there that day. Lucas had always been there. My voice came out rougher than I expected. I'm still me, Dad. His face didn't change. And Lucas is still Lucas. He's still the guy who eats half our pizza every Friday. He's still the guy you let borrow your tools even though he never puts them back in the right drawer. Mom's eyes dropped to her plate. I swallowed hard. You liked him yesterday. Dad's jaw tightened. So why do you hate him now? My voice cracked before I could stop it. Because I love him? My mom went very still. Dad's face changed, not softer. Worse, like I had said the word love and made it real in a room where he wanted it to stay theoretical. You're 17. His voice dropped. You don't know what this is. I know what Lucas is to me. You know what you feel right now. Isn't that where everyone starts? He looked away first, and for one stupid second, I thought maybe I had reached him. Then his eyes moved toward the ceiling, toward my room, toward the window that had been our secret door, our bad idea, our late-night escape hatch. The window where Lucas smiled at me like the world made sense if I just stopped fighting it. Dad stood. My chair scraped back before I realized I had moved. What are you doing? His mouth pressed into a flat line. Making sure this house has boundaries. My pulse kicked hard. Dad. Mom rose halfway from her chair. David, don't do this right now. But he was already walking toward the hallway. I followed, my hands cold and useless at my sides. At the bottom of the stairs, he looked back at me. Not angry anymore. Scared. That was somehow worse. I'm closing the window, Martin. I didn't know a window could feel final before anyone touched it. Not shut. Not nailed. Just decided on. Like my dad had already closed it in his head. The next morning, the first thing I saw was not my ceiling or the sad pile of laundry near my desk. It was the window. Still there. Still facing Lucas's room. Still pretending to be ordinary. My phone buzzed under my pillow. For half a second, my heart did the stupid thing where it hoped. Lucas, you alive? I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then I typed back. Physically, yes. Emotionally, I've been murdered by dinner. 3 dots appeared immediately. Dramatic. I could see him in my head, leaning against his bed frame, blonde hair messy, mouth doing that almost smile he used when he wanted me to feel less terrible. I almost smiled too. Almost. Downstairs, a cabinet closed too hard. My dad was awake. The almost smile died. At breakfast, nobody mentioned Lucas, which was impressive, considering Lucas was sitting between us in every silence. Mom poured coffee she didn't drink. Dad read the sports section like the fate of Western civilization depended on high school baseball scores. I pushed cereal around my bowl until the flakes turned soft and disgusting. Mom's eyes flicked to me. You should eat. I looked at my bowl. I'm trying to respect the cereal's grieving process. She almost reacted. Dad didn't. That hurt more than if he had yelled. When I got up to leave, his newspaper lowered. You come straight home after school. I stopped with one strap of my backpack over my shoulder. I usually do. His mouth tightened. No arcade. No detours. No Lucas. There it was again. Lucas turned from person into rule. I gripped the backpack strap. He's my best friend. Dad's eyes lifted slowly. That's not what you told your mother yesterday. My face burned. Not from shame. From the fact that love sounded wrong in his mouth even when he wasn't saying it. Mom set her mug down softly. David. He folded the newspaper with careful hands. Too careful. We are not doing this before school. I wanted to say we were already doing it. We had been doing it since Mom saw us on the sidewalk. Since I took Lucas's hand back. Since I said the words out loud and made everyone realize they couldn't shove them back inside me. But the bus would come in 6 minutes. And somehow being grounded before second period felt pathetic. So I opened the door. Dad's voice followed me out. We'll talk more tonight. I stood on the porch, breathing cold morning air like it could make me braver. Across the narrow space between our houses, Lucas's window was open. He was there. Of course he was. Gray hoodie, sleep-tangled hair, one shoulder against the frame like he had been waiting longer than he would admit. He lifted 2 fingers. Not a wave. Promise. My chest loosened. Just a little. I lifted mine back. Then I walked to school without looking down. By the time I got home, my dad's truck was already in the driveway. That was never a good sign. He usually came home after 6, tired and dusty from work, smelling like sawdust and coffee. But his truck sat there at 4:30 like a warning. I found him in the garage. Hammer on the workbench. Box of nails beside it. A flat piece of plywood leaning against his leg. My stomach dropped so fast it felt physical. Mom stood near the door with her arms folded tight across her chest. Her face looked tired in a way that made me angry and guilty at the same time. Dad picked up the plywood. Go upstairs. My voice came out too sharp. No. His eyes lifted. Martin, you're not doing this. The hammer shifted in his hand. Not threatening, just heavy. Final. I'm protecting you. No, you're punishing me. His jaw tightened. You think I don't know the difference? I stepped into the garage before I could lose my nerve. I think you're scared and calling it protection because that sounds better. Mom closed her eyes for half a second. Dad looked at me like I had slapped him. For one breath, I thought he might yell. Instead, he walked past me. That was worse. I followed him up the stairs, my pulse climbing with every step. My room looked exactly the same when he pushed the door open. Bed unmade. Pre-calc book on the floor. The tiny blue dinosaur Lucas had won me sitting on my desk like a witness. Then Dad looked at the window. Our window. Mine and Lucas's, even if technically windows could not belong to two people. He wasn't boarding up the whole thing like a hurricane was coming. He was blocking the part that opened, the part that had always made Lucas feel one bad idea away. Across the gap, Lucas's curtains were open. He was there, standing still, like he had known. My dad noticed him too. His face hardened. I moved in front of the window. Don't. Dad's voice went low. Move. No. His eyes flashed. I am not letting this continue like nothing changed. Nothing changed about Lucas. Everything changed about Lucas. That one landed. Because it was honest. Not fair. Not kind. But honest. Dad pointed toward the window. He was your friend. Your neighbor. The kid who ate half our pizza every Friday. And now suddenly I'm supposed to be fine with him sneaking into your room. He didn't sneak. You let him. Because I trusted him. You trusted him when you didn't have to think about me loving him. The room went quiet. Across the way, Lucas didn't move. Dad's grip tightened around the plywood. You're too young to understand what this can do to your life. I laughed once, but it came out broken. My life is already happening. He looked away first. Then he reached around me and pulled the window shut. The sound cracked through my chest. I stood there while he nailed the plywood across the inside of the frame. Not over the glass. Not across the whole wall. Just across the part that opened. One hit. Then another. Then another. Each one smaller than a shout. Each one worse. For the first time in my life, I wanted my window to be just a window. Glass. Wood. Paint. Something boring. Something that did not feel like my dad had nailed a piece of himself over my chest. After he left my room, I stayed standing there. The plywood covered half the frame, rough and ugly, with silver nail heads catching the light from my desk lamp. I could still see a thin slice of night through the top, but not enough to see Lucas's face clearly. Not enough to reach him. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it so fast I almost dropped it. Lucas. I'm still here. 3 words. That was all. No dramatic speech. No, are you okay? No pretending this didn't hurt. Just Lucas, being Lucas. Still there. I sat on the edge of my bed. The tiny blue dinosaur from the arcade staring at me from my desk like it expected me to do something brave. My thumbs hovered over the screen. I typed, deleted, typed again. I know. It looked too small. So I added, I'm sorry. The reply came almost instantly. Don't. I stared at that. Then another message appeared. You didn't nail it shut. My throat tightened so hard I had to look away. Across the room, the plywood sat between us like my father's fear had taken physical form. I stood and crossed to the window. Through the narrow, uncovered strip, I could see Lucas's room. A blur of warm light, the shape of him near his own window, hoodie sleeves pulled over his hands. He wasn't climbing out. He wasn't knocking. He wasn't making this harder by being reckless. That hurt too, somehow. Because part of me wanted him to break every rule and come over anyway. I wanted the old Lucas, the one who turned impossible things into jokes and bad ideas. But the Lucas across from me just lifted his phone. A second later, mine buzzed again. We're not done. I let out a breath that almost became a laugh. Almost. My fingers shook as I typed back. No. Then, we're not. For a while, we just stood there, separated by two houses, one narrow roof, and a piece of plywood my dad thought could solve love. Couldn't. I opened my notes app. My old rule was still there, buried under homework reminders and grocery lists. No dating until college. I looked at it for a long second. Then I made a new one. No running when it gets real. Across the way, Lucas's shadow shifted. I couldn't see his smile, but I felt it anyway. Lucas looked like he had slept in a washing machine. That was my first thought when he showed up at my locker Monday morning. His hoodie was wrinkled. His hair was doing 3 different things. The sharp, fearless look he usually wore like armor had been replaced by something quieter. Tired. My stomach dropped. Your parents know. Lucas leaned his shoulder against the locker beside mine, eyes fixed on the floor. Good morning to you too. I didn't smile. Neither did he. Around us, people moved through the hallway like nothing had changed. Backpacks swung. Sneakers squeaked. Someone laughed too loudly near the trophy case. Lucas looked normal enough that no one else noticed. I noticed everything. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Was it bad? His mouth pulled slightly to one side. Not a smile. More like his face had tried and failed. My mom used the phrase complicated situation 3 times. I winced. That sounds bad. My dad didn't say much. That sounds worse. Lucas finally looked at me. There it was. The bruise without the bruise. Later, behind the gym, where the teachers never came unless someone had set something on fire, Lucas told me the rest. Not all of it. Lucas never liked repeating words that had already hurt him once. He kicked at a crack in the pavement, hands buried in his hoodie pocket. They knew I was gay. That part was old news. I nodded. They were fine with it when it was just me. His eyes flicked toward mine, then away. But you made it real. I swallowed. Me specifically? A short laugh left him. Yeah. Apparently the boy next door comes with emotional property damage. I hated that he was joking. I hated that it almost worked. He dragged one hand through his hair. My mom kept saying we grew up together, that our families are too close, that if this goes wrong, everything gets ruined. And your dad? Lucas stared past me at the empty practice field. Quiet. The word landed flat. I wanted to touch him, but we were at school, and yesterday my dad had nailed plywood over my window like love was a weather hazard. So I just stood closer. Lucas noticed. Of course he did. His shoulder brushed mine, quick and careful. Then he breathed in like he was choosing not to shake. I told them they taught me not to be ashamed of who I am. My chest tightened. His voice went softer. Then I told them not to teach me to be ashamed of who I love. For a second, the whole school disappeared. There was just Lucas, standing there with tired eyes and messy hair, still choosing me after both our houses had tried to make that choice hurt. I reached for his hand. Only for a second. Only behind the gym. But I held on. His fingers curled around mine like he had been waiting. My phone buzzed after last period. My house isn't much better. I looked across the hallway. Lucas stood near the exit, watching me. I typed back before fear could get a vote. Then we survived both. By lunch, I had decided we were not hiding, which was a bold decision for someone who had spent 10 minutes in the bathroom mirror practicing how to look normal while emotionally declaring war on fear. Lucas found me outside the cafeteria doors, one hand in his hoodie pocket, the other holding a chocolate milk he definitely wasn't going to drink. His eyes moved over my face. You look like you're about to give a TED Talk. I'm calm. You look legally calm. I took the chocolate milk from him and drank half of it. His eyebrows lifted. That was mine. I needed courage. That was 1% milk. Don't minimize my process. The corner of his mouth curved, but it didn't reach his eyes. Not all the way. That made the decision easier. Inside the cafeteria, everything was too bright, too loud, too normal. People were trading fries, arguing over homework, pretending school lunch pizza was edible. And then there was us. Lucas started toward our usual table. Same spot near the windows. Same group of kids from English and pre-calc, same life, technically. Except my dad had nailed our window shut. Except Lucas's parents had turned quiet. Except I loved him and everyone was going to learn how to deal with that. I sat down first. Lucas dropped into the seat across from me out of habit. Wrong. My pulse jumped like I had missed a step on the stairs. I hooked my foot around the leg of the chair beside me and pulled it out. The scrape was loud enough that 3 people looked over. Lucas looked too. I patted the empty chair, trying to seem casual and failing with my entire body. His expression changed slowly. Are you sure? My throat went dry. No, actually. I was 17, scared, grounded, and one bad lunch period away from becoming a hallway roomer with shoes. But I thought about Lucas behind the gym, saying, "Don't teach me to be ashamed of who I love." I thought about my own rule. No running when it gets real. I met his eyes. Sit with me. Lucas didn't smile. Not at first. He stood, picked up his tray, and moved beside me. The whispers started before he even sat down. Not loud. Worse. Careful. Like people thought quiet made them invisible. I placed my hand on the table, palm down, close to his. Lucas stared at it. Then at me. His fingers brushed mine. The cafeteria did not explode. No alarms went off. No teachers fainted. No national emergency was declared. But 2 girls at the next table stopped talking. Someone behind us muttered, "Wait! Are they actually?" Lucas's pinky hooked mine under the edge of the table. Small. Warm. Public. I looked straight ahead and kept breathing. Lucas leaned closer, voice low enough for only me. Still not running? I turned my hand over and laced our fingers together. No. By second period, people knew. By third period, people had opinions. By lunch, I had apparently become half of a thing. That was the word I heard near the vending machines. Thing. Like Lucas and I were not 2 people trying to survive Monday. Like we were a new school policy or a weird stain on the ceiling. A girl from my English class smiled at me near my locker. "You and Lucas are actually kind of cute." I stared at her because kind of cute felt better than disgusting, but still made me feel like a puppy in a window display. "Thanks." Her friend tugged her away, whispering loudly enough for medical professionals to diagnose her with no survival instinct. "I told you they were dating." Lucas appeared beside me 5 seconds later, expression flat. "Congratulations. We've become cafeteria folklore." I shut my locker. "Do we get royalties?" His mouth twitched. "Probably paid in tater tots." For a while it was almost funny. Then it wasn't. A sophomore I barely knew gave me a thumbs up like I had won a diversity award. 2 guys near the gym stared too long. Someone muttered something under their breath when Lucas walked past, and his shoulders went still. Not tense. Ready. I hated that I recognized the difference. After pre-calc, Mandy caught me by the trophy case. She looked different than she had last spring. Or maybe I did. Maybe being cheated on and accidentally falling in love with your best friend changed the lighting. Her books were hugged to her chest. Her eyes flicked toward Lucas at the end of the hall, then back to me. "Hey! Hey!" Awful start. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her notebook. "I saw you 2 at lunch." My stomach braced itself out of habit. "Okay. Mandy looked down, then back up. I'm not trying to make it weird. You're doing great so far. That almost made her smile. Almost. Her eyes moved to Lucas again. He was standing near the end of the hall, pretending not to watch us and failing because Lucas was terrible at pretending when it mattered. Mandy's voice went quieter. You look different with him. I didn't know what to do with that. She shifted her books against her chest. Not bad different. Just less like you're waiting for something to go wrong. That should have hurt. Didn't. Not exactly. It landed somewhere honest. I adjusted my backpack strap. I was scared with everyone. Mandy's mouth pulled into a small, guilty shape. Yeah, I think I know that now. For a second, we were just two people who had failed each other and survived it. Then Tyler Reed's voice cut across the hallway. Well, look at that. Martin got himself a bodyguard and a boyfriend. The air changed. Lucas turned first. Of course he did. Tyler stood with his usual two shadows behind him. Grinning like cruelty was a sport he lettered in. A few people slowed down immediately, because high school students could smell drama faster than cafeteria pizza. Lucas took one step forward. I caught his wrist. His eyes snapped to mine. I shook my head once. Not this time. Tyler's grin widened. Ah, holding him back? That's cute. My heart hammered. Lucas's wrist was warm under my fingers. I let go slowly, then stepped in front of him. The hallway went quiet enough for me to hear myself breathe. Tyler smiled like he had already won. That was his first mistake. His second was assuming I was still the version of myself who needed Lucas to stand in front of me. So which one of you is the girlfriend? A few people laughed. Not everyone. That mattered. My face burned, but my feet stayed where they were. Lucas stood behind me, close enough that I could feel the heat of him, close enough to remind me I wasn't alone. But not in front of me. Not this time. I looked Tyler up and down, slow enough for the hallway to notice. My voice came out lower than I expected. At least I can stand here and hold the hand of someone I love. The laughter died weirdly fast. Tyler's grin flickered. I glanced at the two guys behind him, then back at Tyler. You need backup just to open your mouth. One of his friends made a noise that sounded like he was choking on his own spit. The other suddenly became very interested in the floor tiles. Tyler stepped forward half an inch. What did you just say? My heartbeat slammed so hard I could feel it in my throat. Lucas moved. I lifted one hand behind me without looking. He stopped. That made me braver than I deserved. I held Tyler's stare. I don't need an audience to prove I'm not scared. Someone near the lockers went quiet in that way that felt louder than laughing. Then someone else muttered, Damn! Not huge. Not movie scene huge. Just enough. Enough to turn the whole hallway around. Tyler's face went red in patches. His friends looked like they wanted to evaporate into the nearest classroom. The warning bell rang above us, sharp and ugly. Nobody moved. Tyler's jaw worked once. Whatever, freak. That word hit. Not as hard as it would have yesterday, but hard enough. Before Lucas could react, I stepped closer. Not into Tyler's space, just into my own. No, my voice surprised me by not shaking. You don't get to call him that because you're uncomfortable with two people being happy and neither of them needing your permission. The hallway went quiet again. Tyler's eyes cut to Lucas, then back to me. You done? I adjusted my backpack strap. For now. That got another laugh. The bell rang again. A teacher appeared at the end of the hall, squinting like adults did when they sensed trouble but hoped it would solve itself. Tyler shoved past his friends and walked away. His shadows followed, because apparently irony was alive and thriving. I stood there for 1 second too long, adrenaline making my hands feel electric. Then Lucas stepped beside me. His eyes were different, soft and stunned, and something else I couldn't look at too directly without losing my ability to function in public. His shoulder bumped mine. That was hot. My face immediately betrayed me. This is a civil rights moment. Behave. Lucas's smile finally came back, crooked and real. I'm behaving respectfully. You are absolutely not. His fingers brushed mine once before we started walking to class. Small. Quick. Enough. And for the first time all day, the whispers behind us sounded less like a threat and more like background noise. By the time I got home, my dad already knew. Of course he did. High school gossip moved faster than weather alerts and had the accuracy of a drunk GPS. Someone had filmed the hallway argument, and by the final bell, it had already made its way into at least 3 parent group chats. So I had expected some version of the story to reach him. I just hadn't expected him to be waiting in the living room with my mom beside him and my phone charger already unplugged from the wall. That felt aggressive. My backpack slipped off one shoulder. Wow. Full intervention setup. Mom gave me a tired look. Martin. Dad's arms were crossed. Did you confront Tyler Reed in the hallway today? I looked between them. Confront is a dramatic word. Answer me. I swallowed. He was being cruel to Lucas. Dad's face tightened at Lucas's name. And you decided to make a scene? Something hot moved through my chest. No. I decided not to stand there while someone called him names. You made this public. It was already public. Because you chose to make it that way. I stared at him. There it was again. Like the problem was not Tyler being awful. Not people whispering. Not my father turning my window into a construction project. The problem was me refusing to disappear politely. I stepped farther into the room. I didn't make it big. I just didn't hide. Mom looked down at her hands. Dad's voice went quieter, which somehow made it worse. You're 17. You don't know what forever means. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because adults loved saying forever like they had handled it so well. I thought about Mandy. About 2:13 a.m. About writing rules because pain had made me feel smart. I thought about Lucas standing behind me in the hallway and letting me be brave on my own. My hands stopped shaking. Maybe not. I met my dad's eyes. But I know what cowardice feels like. And I'm done choosing it. Mom inhaled softly. Dad went still. For 1 second, the room felt breakable. Then his jaw locked. Go upstairs. I blinked. What? You're grounded. That's your response? His eyes flashed. My response is that you come home after school. You do your homework. And you stop turning this family into hallway gossip. I felt that one in my ribs. Mom stood halfway. David, enough. But Dad kept looking at me like I was something slipping out of his hands. I picked up my backpack. At the stairs, my phone buzzed once. Lucas. I didn't even have to look to know. Dad's hand opened. Phone. I held it for 1 extra second. Then gave it to him. Upstairs, the plywood still covered my window. But for the first time, I didn't feel trapped. I felt chosen. Even by myself. Grounded lasted exactly 3 days before I learned there were loopholes in punishment. Not good loopholes. Academic loopholes. My dad could take my phone. He could nail a board over my window. He could make the house feel like a museum where every room had rules. But he could not ban me from the public library without sounding completely insane. The library was the only place my parents could pretend was about homework and not about Lucas. So on Thursday, I did my homework under fluorescent lights between the biography section and a poster reminding children to read more books about frogs. Lucas sat across from me, one sneaker hooked around the chair leg, pretending to study chemistry. He was not studying chemistry. His eyes kept drifting to my face. I tapped my pencil against his notebook. The periodic table is over there, Romeo. His mouth tilted. Did you just call me Romeo? You keep appearing near windows and causing family disasters. It felt accurate. Lucas leaned back, hoodie bunching at his shoulders. Wow, we are basically Romeo and Juliet. My stomach tightened before I could stop it. No. His smile faded. I looked down at my pre-calc worksheet at numbers that suddenly looked like a language invented by people with no emotional problems. I don't want our ending. Lucas was quiet for a second. Then his fingers slid across the table, stopping just short of mine. Careful. Public. Still ours. I touched his knuckle with mine. That was all we could risk. That was enough. Lucas's voice softened. Your window still closed? Still boarded up like I'm a hurricane. A breath of laughter left him, but his eyes stayed sad. I watched him look away, and I knew what he missed because I missed it too. The stupid roof. The late-night knocks. The feeling that if the world got too loud, Lucas was only one open window away. I swallowed. Maybe the window was never the point. His eyes came back to me. It was just the first way I learned how to come to you. Lucas went very still. Not shocked this time. Touched. That was scarier. I looked at our hands, almost touching on the library table. And if they never get okay with it? His face changed. Martin. I mean it. My voice stayed low, but it didn't break. When I'm old enough, if I have to build a life somewhere else, I will. Not because I hate them. Because I don't want to spend my whole life asking permission to love you. Lucas looked down at the table. I tried to breathe normally. I don't want a dramatic death scene or poison or whatever Shakespeare was on. I just want us to have a place where loving you isn't treated like property damage. Lucas blinked fast. Once. Twice. Then he looked down, rubbing at his eye with the heel of his hand like he could blame dust in a public library. I pretended not to notice, because sometimes love was knowing when to let someone have their dignity. Under the table, his foot nudged mine. I nudged back. Across from me, Lucas smiled without looking up. For the record, I'd be a great Romeo. I finally smiled. You'd absolutely climb the wrong balcony. Only if you were on it. My chest hurt, but this time it was the good kind. It stayed good for about 12 minutes. Then my mom's car pulled up outside the library, and Lucas's smile disappeared before I even turned around. She didn't come inside right away. She just sat there in the parking lot with both hands on the steering wheel, looking through the windshield like she had spent the whole drive deciding not to cry. Lucas followed my eyes. His face went careful. That's not a homework pickup face. No. My phone was still gone. So when my mom finally stepped inside and told me Lucas's parents were coming over after dinner, I had to hear it out loud in front of him. No warning. No chance to prepare. Just my mother standing between young adult fiction and the printer station, trying to sound calm while my heart fell through the floor. They think we all need to talk. Lucas's hand shifted on the table, close to mine but not touching. I looked at him. He looked back. And somehow, without phones, windows, rooftops, or anything else we used to hide behind, we both understood the same thing. This wasn't going away. It was coming home with us. The meeting happened in our living room because apparently my life had become a family court case with throw pillows. Lucas sat beside me on the couch. Not too close. That was the first thing I hated. His knee was inches from mine, his hands folded between them, his face calm in the way that meant he was carrying too much and refusing to drop any of it. His parents sat across from us. My parents took the chairs near the fireplace. 6 people in one room. One problem, according to them. My dad started with a sigh that sounded older than the house. This can't keep going like this. My fingers curled into my jeans. Lucas's mom looked at him, then at me. Her eyes were kind, which almost made it worse. We love both of you. That's why this is complicated. There was that word again. Complicated. Like Lucas and I were a math problem no one wanted to show their work for. My mom rubbed her thumb over the edge of her wedding ring. You boys are young. Lucas's dad finally looked up. And close. Too close, maybe. You grew up together. If this goes wrong, it won't just hurt you too. That was when something in me snapped. Not loud. Clean. I leaned forward before I could talk myself out of it. Stop saying it like Lucas did something to me. Everyone went quiet. Lucas turned his head toward me. I kept going before fear could catch up. He didn't confuse me. He didn't push me into anything. He was just there. He was there when Mandy hurt me. He was there when I made stupid rules because I was scared. He was there when I didn't even understand what I was feeling. My dad's face tightened. Martin. I looked at him. No. You all keep talking like Lucas ruined me. Lucas inhaled beside me. I reached for his hand. In front of everyone. His fingers closed around mine so fast it almost hurt. He didn't happen to me. I chose him. My mom's eyes shone. Lucas's mother looked down. I swallowed, but my voice stayed steady. I'm grateful for everything you've given me. I really am. But love is the one thing I should be allowed to choose for myself. Dad went still. If there isn't room in this house for the person I love, then one day I'll have to build a life somewhere that does. My throat burned. I'm not saying that to threaten you. I'm saying it because I need you to understand that I know what I'm choosing. Lucas's thumb moved over mine. Once. Enough. I'm not confused. My dad looked away. I'm not being led. Lucas's grip tightened. I'm growing up. The room stayed silent so long I could hear the clock over the mantel. Then my mom stood. Not dramatically, just like her body had decided before her fear could stop her. No one is leaving. Her voice shook, but it held. Not from this house. Not tonight. Dad looked at her. She didn't look back. Her eyes stayed on me and Lucas. I just need to know that both of you are sure. I held Lucas's hand tighter. I'm sure. Lucas lifted his chin. Tired eyes steady on both our families. I'm sure too. My dad didn't apologize. He didn't smile. But he looked at our hands. And for the first time, he didn't tell me to let go. My dad took the board down on Sunday. No announcement. No speech. Just the scrape of a ladder against the side of the house. The familiar knock of tools. And my dad standing in my room with a screwdriver like he was performing surgery on his own pride. I sat on my bed, pretending not to watch. He pulled the last nail free and set the plywood against the wall. The window looked strange without it. Openable. Dad wiped dust from the sill with his thumb. His eyes stayed on the glass. It wasn't an apology. Not yet. But it was less than a wall. Daylight rules still apply. My throat tightened. Okay. His hand rested on the frame for one extra second. Like touching it cost him something. Then he left. That night, I was half asleep when I heard the tap. Soft. Careful. So familiar it hurt. Lucas stood at his window across the gap. Blonde hair messy. Gray hoodie sleeves pulled over his hands. He smiled. Still not running? I pushed my window up. The cool air rushed in like the house had finally exhaled. Still not running. His eyes moved over my face, softer than the porch light behind him. Good. I leaned against the frame, trying to look casual and probably looking like someone about to pass a kidney stone. I have something I want to try. Lucas blinked. Should I be worried? Probably. That's never stopped me before. I looked down at the narrow space between us, then back at him. I want to try the Romeo and Juliet window kiss thing. His smile went slow. Dangerous. Fond. Okay. Am I Romeo or Juliet? Technically, with your climbing record, you're more qualified to be Romeo. Lucas placed one hand on his window frame. I was hoping you'd say that. He didn't climb onto the roof this time. He stayed inside his room, one hand braced safely on the sill, leaning only far enough for me to meet him halfway. I stayed inside mine too. No roof, no bad ideas. Just the small, impossible space between our windows finally becoming small enough. Our first kiss was not cinematic. Our noses bumped. Lucas laughed against my mouth, and I almost ruined my own historic romantic gesture by laughing too. Then he tried again. Softer. Slower. And the world went quiet in exactly the way I used to think only happened to other people. On Monday, we walked into school holding hands. People looked. People whispered. Someone smiled. Tyler looked away first. Lucas's fingers fit between mine like they had been waiting there all along. This time, I didn't look down. The first time I fell for Lucas, it happened through an open window. The second time, it happened in front of everyone. And this time, I didn't let go.